Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle and the Pacific Northwest. We lovingly refer to as the PNW. If you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here is the podcast for you, the podcast of record. It's where street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and my co-host today is Monica Blackwood. You're going to learn a lot more about Monica here in a few minutes. She's brand new to the team, and we're going to indoctrinate her today. Our guest is Sami Azhari. Sami is an attorney and principal of Azhari LLC with over 14 years of experience as a trial lawyer. Sami has tried, listen to this, over 100 jury and bench trials. His practice focuses on federal and white-collar criminal defense, where he has defended attorneys, traders, and corporate executives on a litany of federal crimes, including wire fraud, bank fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy charges. I feel like we're going to go into a Netflix video of or a series or something. It's all the sexy stuff. I can't wait to learn more. We're going to dive deep into courtroom drama with our friend, Sami Azhari. Sami, welcome. We'll be with you in just a minute. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We are on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube, of course. We are ubiquitous. We come to you from about a dozen other cities, including the mothership in Atlanta, Boca Raton, Boston, Charlotte. Charleston. I don't even remember them all. I just remember Seattle. Now, listen, before we bring on Sami, Monica, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan. This is so exciting. I'm really excited to be here and to be doing this with you. I'm going to learn some new things.
Well, we may also learn some things. If you didn't know already, Monica is a two-time prior guest. In fact, the last time she came, it's so funny. We were talking about not PPP. We were talking about long-term care in the state of Washington. Okay. There was so that was about 2021. So it's been a couple of years. Monica is the CEO of West Sound Workforce. It's an excellent HR and staffing firm. You're going to learn a lot more about her there, but I think the one thing that I'm going to share that everybody should know about Monica, I put it in the newsletter, is that she is a former letter winner for our mutual alma mater, the University of Washington. She was on crew there and was a letter winner there of a fabulous program, but we brought her here as a host. She's going to pick up every third Wednesday. Craig Swanson would normally be here, but he had a conflict, and so Monica's picking up. So, Monica, before we bring on Sami, anything that you'd like to share with all of the 7.5 listeners we currently have about why you decided to accept my invitation to become a co-host?
Well, gosh, I think maybe we might be up to 8.5 or 9.5 listeners now, because I know a couple of people that were excited about this. Why I decided to take this on, because I am a curious person by nature. And I think that fits really well into HR, because you always need to be learning new things and trying new things and figuring out ways to achieve a goal. And so being here as your co-host once a month is going to be an opportunity for me to dive into some things, not just with our guests that we have, where I can learn more about industries and the things that they excel in, but also learn a little bit more about some technology things that I'm not quite familiar with. And my kids will no longer be able to sneak them by me. So there we go.
That's funny. Well, Monica, we're glad to have you. Sami, we are also glad to have you. I met Sami Azhari through a national, networking group called Provisors. He's based in Chicago, and you might be wondering why I'm bringing on a Chicago attorney. Well, I'm bringing him on because we're going to talk the sexy stuff. We're going to talk about money laundering. I don't know if we're going to be talking about anything related to Ozarks or anything, but we're going to be talking racketeering and we're going to be talking white collar crimes. We've had many attorneys on that were family practice or other than this is kind of fun to dive into. And Sami, you're doing work nationally. So first of all, welcome to the show. Tell everybody a little bit about what makes your practice a little bit different.
Yeah, so great to be here. Thanks so much for having me. And so I'm a criminal lawyer. And when most people think of criminal law, they think of something a little bit more local, like your DUI, retail theft, domestic battery, murder type charges that are kind of state specific. I'm practicing primarily in federal court. And because of that, I'm able to practice across the country. So I've handled cases from California to upstate New York and a lot of places in between. I currently have cases in Boston, South Carolina, Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa. So I practice all over the country. So location really isn't an issue.
That sounds great. And actually, being in HR, I hear a little bit more about those white collar things than kind of our average person who those things don't hit the news like the types of crimes that you mentioned. I have kind of an off the wall fun question for you. Have you ever stumped a judge? I'm really curious.
Well, the thing is, it's hard to know when you stump them because they'll never let you on that you've stumped them. So even if you're right, even if they disagree with you, they're never going to give you the benefit of actually admitting that they've been stumped. So do I think I've appeared in front of judges and have known the law maybe a little bit better than them? Yes. Do I think I've appeared in front of judges and have maybe cited the correct law and they've interpreted it, in my opinion, the wrong way? Yes. Have they come out and said, hey, Mr. Azhari, you sure stumped me here today? No, but I've only been practicing 15 years. Maybe in the next 15, I'll see that happen.
Sounds good. Maybe it'll be one of those off the record comments that you get, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Sami, there might be some people listening or watching who maybe on the fringe level understand what the definition of white collar crime is, but let's make sure that we're all working kind of on the same level playing field. Define for us what white collar crime means.
Yeah, so white collar crime is typically referring to financial fraud cases. So it typically involves either an executive, a business owner, and it's not a crime of violence. It's a crime that's been committed that is financial in nature. It is something that was committed through some sort of scheme, a conspiracy that was thought of by multiple people. So typically what you'll see in a white collar criminal case, there's a lot of types of wire fraud. There's mail fraud, could be bank or accounting fraud. There could be embezzlement charges, money laundering charges, anything when you're talking about Ponzi schemes. Those are common types of fraud that you'll see in federal court. So when you're thinking of a white collar crime, you're typically referring to someone that was either a business owner or someone in a position where they've abused that trust and they've taken money from someone. And that's typically what it means when somebody says they're referring to a white collar crime.
Got it. So tell me, by the time you get involved, actions have already happened, right? So what are some things that individuals and company owners and leadership can look for that might clue them in sooner rather than later, and hopefully well before you get involved?
Yeah, so there's different ways that I can get involved. Number one is a company might receive a letter from the Department of Justice. It's a grand jury subpoena saying we need you to provide a slew of documents, or we need you to appear and testify before the grand jury. That would tip somebody off that there's an active federal investigation going on, that they need to have an attorney present. The second way, which is a little bit more clear, is if somebody has their home or office raided by the FBI or any other federal agency. And then I'll typically get a call saying, hey, the FBI just raided my office. They took a bunch of documents. I need a lawyer right away. And that's another way I get involved. And then the third way, which is probably the most common, is after someone's received a target letter or they've been indicted in U.S. District Court, that's when they say, I've been charged in court and this is what I'm charged with, and I now need a lawyer. So there's different levels of it. I could get involved at the investigation phase, which is typically my favorite, just because I get ahead of the game. I know what they're looking into, and I can prevent my client from giving incriminating information. If somebody comes to me after they've indicted, there's often times where somebody's made incriminating statements, they've provided documents that they didn't have to provide, and then we're already working upstream.
Okay.
You know, as soon as you said their home being raided, my thought just actually went to the news and the past two presidents of the United States, two different, one Democrat, one Republican, their homes are all being raided for documents, and that just popped into my head when you said that. As I was looking through your website, one thing did really kind of pop up to me that you've done a lot of work on. And obviously, we're a few years past the pandemic, and it's not fully in the rearview mirror, but PPP was a huge part. In fact, I got PPP money for my business. I guess until I started reading your website, it didn't dawn on me that there could be obviously litigation involving PPP. Can you talk a little bit about that in your practice, what you've seen?
Yeah. So, and quite frankly, us white collar lawyers were kind of surprised that we haven't seen more of those cases come through the pipelines. So I think we were expecting a lot more because there was rampant fraud across the country, and different U.S. attorneys' offices have different requirements for what type of case they'll prosecute. So, for example, in Atlanta, they're not going to prosecute a case that's less than $300,000, but in Boston, they might prosecute a case that's far less than that. So there's different priorities for the different offices. It's clear that there was a huge amount of fraud across the country, whether it was the PPP loans, the EIDL loans, any type of SBA loan. The question then became is, are particular offices staffed enough, or do they have the bandwidth to take on more work, particularly with PPP? And we also kind of want to be mindful that different administrations have different things that they're going after. So for instance, and this isn't a political statement, but when Trump was president, there was more focus on guns and drugs and violent crimes. And then typically when a Democratic president takes over, they install new U.S. attorneys whose priority is now maybe a little bit different, and they target more of the white collar crimes. So we were honestly a little surprised not to see more of an influx of PPP fraud and any other type of SBA loan fraud prosecutions across the country. There's been maybe a little bit of an uptick, but not as much as we thought.
Hey, Sammy, let me, before, real quick follow-up. I'm sorry, Mike, real quick. Is it fraudulent applications? Is it fraud in how they're using the money? What defines PPP fraud?
It could be any one of those things.
Okay.
So it could be that somebody on the application lied about having a company, they lied about having 5 employees when in reality they had none. Or it could be that that was all true, and then they took the money and they spent it on things that they weren't supposed to. Typically what we're seeing is the ones that are getting prosecuted are the ones that made up fictitious companies and bought $30,000 worth of French bulldogs or Bugattis or Ferraris.
That's great. So I also, like Dan, received PPP money. And I honestly was scared for my life as I was signing away on those forms. I don't know, sometimes I do it on bank forms too. So anyway, but I remember it was like 7 years or 10 years that we have to keep our records, and the US government can come back and ask us for those kinds of things. How long do you think that these investigations, even though they're not necessarily the quantity of them happening, but how long do you think the US government is going to be looking into this?
I don't think it's going to be very long. I mean, the statute of limitations, I think, is 5 years for that. So I don't think they're not going to be pursuing it heavily if they haven't already. I think if there's going to be anything coming down the pipeline in terms of some real heavy prosecutions, it's going to be within the next year. I think if you go beyond that, I think the priorities are going to change.
Phew. Not that I spent them wrong, but I just lose sleep.
Well, we're not going to lose sleep on our priorities. Our priorities is we got to pay the bills. So we're going to take a short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Sami Azhari, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to find out what Sami thinks about the television attorneys. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. Do you know where great people go to meet great companies? West Sound Workforce. For 25 years, West Sound Workforce has been putting people to work, matching their skills and interest with positions employers are looking to fill right here in our own communities. Specializing in temp to hire, and direct hire placement services, West Sound Workforce is there to help job seekers looking to find their next position or their next career step with no cost. Companies partner with West Sound Workforce to augment the recruitment strategies, whether to cover the shift of a vacation employee of their own, having extra hands to make a special project happen, or searching for their new team member. Visit our website at westsoundworkforce.com or check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
All right. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond, as is the case with Sami in Chicago. I'm Monica Blackwood, and our guest, Sami, is here for our next segment, Hot or Not.
And Monica, I promise that was my first ad read for you. I am going to promise you the next one is going to be smoother. I'll have the breathing all in the right places. So we'll work on that. Sami, Hot or Not, as you know, is where we pepper you with questions about business, about your practice, about your life. Who knows what it could be about? You're going to tell us whether the concept or topic is hot or not and why. You know what? I'm going to admit, I am a Perry Mason fan from way back. I watched Matlock. Heck, I even love Night Court, going back to the Harry Anderson days. And I've recently watched The Lincoln Lawyer. So hot or not, Sami, the portrayal of attorneys on TV.
Oh, terrible. No, few things in life infuriate me more than television lawyers. I just think it's just so far from reality. There's a reason why people don't watch us in real life. They'll have to watch us on television, is because it's such a departure from what we actually do, to the point that it's somewhat entertaining. But because I know the reality of working in criminal law, the things I see on TV are just laughable. You know, I have to tell every single client that comes in the door, this isn't television. We will not have the investigation, the arrest, the trial all within an hour. And this will not be done for you to go home at the end of 1 hour and know that the case has been resolved. This is going to be a long, arduous process. And nor do I have custom tailored suits like the lawyers on TV either. So
You mean Paul Drake is not at your beck and call and going and figuring out things to hand you right at the last minute?
that's correct. Unfortunately not. Yeah, that's not reality.
And see, this whole lawyer TV show, I was thinking Suits all the way. Just but
Yeah, that's probably the lowest on my list. So.
Right? But white collar, right? Most of them.
It's true. Yep.
There we go. Anyway, okay. I alluded to this, that one of the reasons why I became a co-host with Dan was because my technology and social media skills needed to come up to speed so that I could keep up with my kids. So, question for you: social media marketing for attorneys, hot or not?
Hot, definitely hot. When I first started out, I wanted to emulate kind of the older lawyers that were very anti-social media and advertising, because when they started, it was actually illegal for lawyers to advertise. But now it's just a whole new world that if you're not embracing technology, you're doing something terribly wrong.
Kind of along the same lines, but not social media. Hot or not, media training.
Definitely important. I just am baffled with, I mean, particularly for lawyers, how many inarticulate lawyers there are. I mean, you went to law school, you would think that you would know how to handle yourself in the media or to conduct yourself with things like that. But lawyers are just, for whatever reason, terrible at it. That I think it's important for people to focus on being better with the media and getting media training, focusing on PR, things like that.
I think that's fantastic training for any profession, honestly, and seeing people get in front of the camera and know how to put their message out there gets kind of scary. And I can only imagine what it would be like if it were a client of yours. So anyway, going along with this theory of, getting in front of people. How about networking groups, hot or not, for lawyers?
Well, definitely hot. I mean, so as Dan was talking about earlier, that's how him and I came to meet each other. I'm a huge networker. I love networking. I love meeting people. I love finding ways for me to be a resource and be helpful to them. And I love sharing how they can be helpful to me. So there's no better way than to grow your brand and grow your business than through relationships and networking. So it takes time to build them. And I definitely value networking.
So quick follow-up question. What networking groups have proved to be the best for you? Some are national, some are local. What, do you have any specific?
Yeah, so I'm a member of Provisors, which is a fantastic organization. And I tell people all the time, I don't know where my business would be without Provisors. I'm very thankful that I joined. I'm very thankful for the people that I've met. It's opened up a lot of doors for me. It's allowed me to grow my practice nationally. And I've had record years, and it's all thanks to this Provisors networking group.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to talk to our provisors, but I think they're gonna have to get a spot. We got to get them to sponsor. They've gotten a lot of love here today, and they're gonna get a little bit more. One of the questions I'll ask people who I meet from provisors is, how will I know when to say, hey, I know a person? And in your case, hey, I know a guy named Sam you need to talk to. What is it that I might hear from my client that's a small or medium-sized business that would direct me to call you? And I'm thinking in terms of people listening to this saying, hey, this may have happened to me and I wish I'd known, or I want to know in the future. What would I hear?
Yeah, so you would hear someone that's talking about either a subpoena they've received from the Department of Justice saying that they need to provide documents or appear in court, or somebody's had their door knocked on by the FBI saying, hey, we want to talk to you. We have a couple of questions, or they were just yanked out of their home or office in handcuffs, and office and home were raided. So in that case, it would be pretty clear as to whether someone needs my services.
Just as a quick follow-up, how often does it happen that that person being yanked away from dinner in handcuffs had no idea what was going on because there was an employee situation? Let's just say it was embezzlement or something like that. The employee was the person doing this, but it came back to the owner, and they have no idea what's happening. Is that as common as I think it might be?
It is. I mean, yeah, there's some defendants in a case like that. There would be multiple defendants, and there are some defendants that will know about it ahead of time because they were approached and they've been cooperating. They've been providing information to the government. But then there's some people at the top of that food chain that have absolutely no idea there's an investigation taking place. And then they're surprised more than anyone that the FBI is raiding their office or yanking them out of their house in handcuffs.
Great. Well, switching gears on you a little bit, you have an 18-month-old son, and congratulations. So, hot or not, changing diapers?
Definitely not. Can't wait till that's over. I'm enjoying the age I'm enjoying the age that he is right now, but there's certain things that I can definitely do without.
Got it. Got it.
You mentioned you're a busy guy. You're really taking advantage of technology to be able to work with companies all over the country. From a life balance standpoint, that's got to also be a little bit of a challenge. I believe this is your first child, and so talk a little bit about life balance and what you do to make sure that you can keep that balance, that you can spend time with your wife and your son while still working as hard as you do?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people there's 24 hours in the day, so you got to make the most out of the 24 hours. So, I'm up at 5:30. My networking starts at 6 a.m. If I don't have a networking meeting that morning, I'm helping my wife with our son, getting him ready for daycare. It's just a matter of making sure every minute is as productive as possible. So I have an amazing wife that's been taking the load of making sure our son's ready for school in the morning and picking him up from daycare and making dinner. So without having her as somebody to lean on, I don't know that I would be able to do what I'm doing right now. So I'm very thankful that I met such an amazing woman.
So, with all of that, what is your favorite hour of the day?
I would say right at 4:30 p.m. when I run downstairs and grab my son from daycare. Nothing pleases me more than walking in there and having him see me. He's playing with all his friends, and I just walk up to him and I grab him and we just head back upstairs. Thankfully, the daycare is in our building. It's just right downstairs, so it's very convenient. But that's just the favorite time of the day. I look forward to that every single day.
One of the things when I was reading your bio and looking at all of the cases you have, do you end up have to physically go to some of those, or is technology now, especially on the heels of the pandemic and the ubiquitousness of Zoom and Teams and all of that, are you able to spend a lot of time just working from home, even if or do you have to be in court?
Yeah, no, thankfully, I'm huge on technology, and a lot of courts are continuing to keep Zoom and telephonic appearances, and it's been very helpful, particularly for the routine matters that really don't need us. They really don't necessitate lawyers actually being physically in court. When you're talking about a hearing or a trial, we want to do those in person. We don't want to do those virtually. We just think there's something lost there. But the routine matters that we're just there for a status to update the judge on what's happening. Thankfully, those are, for the most part, on Zoom or telephonic, and it's really cut down on a lot of unnecessary travel.
And so does that, do your clients feel comfortable with that, or would they rather see you more often than not in person?
Oh, they love it. I mean, they get to stay home. They get to Zoom in from court. They don't have to, be in this big courtroom in front of this scary judge that's, going to be maybe handing down their fate one day. So they just feel a lot more comfortable at home. They don't have to take days off work. They don't have to travel unnecessarily. So it's really convenient for everyone.
Got it.
Sami, I'm always curious how people end up in the career they are, especially entrepreneurs, and you are an entrepreneur. What got you going down this path of law? What was it, and when was it, and what was it, and how did you end up dealing with white collar law as opposed to any other type?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I get this question a lot, and I love telling this story. So I'm an electrical engineer by background. I went to Purdue University, and I was all set to be a patent lawyer. And while I was waiting for my bar results, I was waiting tables at a restaurant. So I got my first legal job, and I kept the waiter job. And because that's where all my friends worked. And so I didn't want to lose my friends. So I kept the job, and I just worked two jobs. So one by one, they just kept getting arrested. So I had to keep representing them in criminal court, whether it was DUI or guns or drugs or whatever it is. And so I liked criminal law, and I sort of stuck with it, and I owe it all to my, degenerate friends, so to speak. Ever since then, it's been kind of a gradual, climb up the ladder towards the more types of serious crimes. I gravitated towards attempt murder and murder, arson, things like that. And then I went to federal court, and I wanted to do more white collar because I just felt that was the pinnacle of criminal law.
So how did you decide on electrical engineering initially as your degree before going into patent law?
Yeah, so if you want to be a patent prosecutor or even a patent litigator, it's always, for a patent prosecutor, it's actually required that you have a technical background. If you want to litigate patent law, you don't need the technical background, but it's always helpful to have. So a lot of people that are patent lawyers will have technical degrees. And I thought, if nothing else, it was a good degree for me to fall back on if I didn't want to go to law school anymore, and I could always be an engineer, as opposed to getting the typical kind of political science or history or English degree before going over to law school.
Fascinating.
I can't believe how fast time is going. We've hit our second break. We're going to take that short break to hear from our corporate sponsors. And when we come back with Sami Azhari, our guest for our Plead the Fifth section of the show, we're going to find out if Sami's ever had to have someone plead the fifth. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, BC Fitness Studio, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm co-host Monica Blackwood, and today our guest is Sami Azhari for our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
And Plead the Fifth, you know what? You get one Plead the Fifth. I bet in court, people can have more than one, but here on the Shrimp Tank court, you only get one. And if you use that, then we're really going to turn up the heat. But we're going to ask you some fun questions here, and we'll see if you do. So I've got to literally, I've never asked anybody else this. We've had attorneys of various different types on, but something about the white collar criminal law, the word racketeering. I don't know why I like it so much, but it's kind of a cool word. Sami, have you ever had to advise your clients to plead the fifth?
All the time. My first things that I say to them is, don't talk to anyone else about this case unless it's me. So I've never advised anyone to make any statements, even to the press. And if there is a statement that's being made out to the press, it's going to be from me. So every single one of my clients is very much told, do not open your mouth about this case to anyone, including your spouse.
So Monica, I do have a quick follow-up. I know, Sami, your disdain for TV and movie attorneys. However, I just had in my head every TV or movie attorney who's had a client say something, and the look that they give them, that probably is accurate, wouldn't it be? If the client blurts out something, I'm thinking of Miracle on 34th Street and Dylan McDermott, something like that. That's probably like the worst, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had it happen during a closing argument one time. My co-counsel was given a closing argument, and I'm sitting next to the client, and our client just stands up and said, he's not getting the job done. I want to testify. And this was after the close of evidence. And needless to say, I was very, very surprised. And the judge had to drag everyone back and have a conference about what just happened. So we ended up winning the trial, but it was a very scary moment. And I was very taken aback by what had just happened.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so obviously you are in the business of giving advice to people, especially, to keep your mouth shut, apparently. So what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Ooh, I would say probably just enjoy life a little bit more. Don't take everything so seriously. Just, relax a little bit. Everything's going to be fine. Don't overthink everything. So I have a tendency to do that. So if I can kind of relive those years, I'd probably be a little bit more carefree.
But you still want to hang out with the degenerates, because that's how you got where you are today, right?
Absolutely. That's how you get an interesting life. Yeah.
So speaking of, a lot of us have hobbies, and this is a question I love asking. A lot of us have hobbies. You have a young child and a busy practice. Maybe you don't have as many as you'd like, but if I said, Sami, you got to start a new business, can't have anything to do with law. You got to start a new business, and it's going to be based on a hobby. What would that business be?
I think I would be a writer. So years ago, I wanted to be a better writer. So I started writing more articles, and I wrote some book chapters for lawyers. I took up reading as a way of developing better writing skills. So you can see that little bookshelf there behind me. So I've really kind of focused on reading, and I would really love an opportunity to just sit down and write. And if I had to choose something, I think writing would be it.
Wow. So on that bookshelf or not, what is one of the best books that you've read recently, and why?
Ooh, yeah. So, I love Jim Collins. I think he's a fantastic writer. He writes excellent books on, business management and leadership. And I've taken a lot of good notes from reading the books that he's written. So I would say anything Jim Collins writes, I'm going to devour right away. I think he's an excellent writer, and he's got everything backed up by data and evidence. So I really gravitate towards his writing.
So plead the fifth, Sammy. What do you like most and what do you like least about the legal industry today?
Oh, well, I'll happily answer that one. So what I like least is just how old and archaic it is, and how averse it is to moving forward with the times and technology and things like that. So I think it's just the slowest moving industry that I know. I mean, medicine moves faster, obviously tech moves faster. The law just moves incredibly slowly. And it's infuriating to someone like me that's very tech minded and very progressive. So, and what do I like most is that probably that with what I do, I can see justice being done, and I can have, even if it's a small part in it, it's a great feeling at the end of the day to take part in that process.
Okay, you can plead the fifth on this or not, totally up to you. But share with us a time where you had to turn away a potential client, and why did you have to do that? Maybe they were already in handcuffs. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, yeah, there's certain people that just kind of give you a vibe about them when they walk into your office. And I remember this one particular client that wanted to retain me for something, and I just didn't get a good feeling about him. And so I rejected the case, and then I got blown up by multiple phone calls and texts and emails to the point that I had to block them or block the email. So flash forward to now, he's been barred from filing anything in federal court and state court unless he gets permission from the presiding judge of the courthouse. And he has several restraining orders. He's prevented from entering certain banks. So I think I made a good decision with that one.
Yeah, that good vibe. I mean, we call it, that gut feeling or whatever that is. More often than not, I've found in life it's usually a pretty good indicator. That gut feeling. It's been said that we can be our own worst enemy at times, or not our worst enemy, our own worst critic. Can you share with us, just from your entrepreneurial journey and your practice, can you share with us something that you struggle with?
Yeah, I think I struggle with just kind of appreciating the things that I have accomplished so far. My biggest flaw, I guess, is my tendency to continue moving the goalposts. It's, I can set a particular goal, then once I achieve it, I don't sit back and enjoy that particular moment. I say, well, I haven't achieved this, and so now this is the new goal, and so now I'm going to wait and celebrate until I achieve the new goal. And the problem is you just keep kicking that celebratory can down the road to the point that you never celebrate, you never think you've accomplished anything. So that's probably my biggest kind of shortfall.
I know that in my world in HR, we're often, especially when it comes to creating employee culture, it's about making sure that we celebrate all of those little wins, those little things that we've accomplished. And so I'm just going to tell you, it's important to pat yourself on the back for 5 minutes, whatever it is, or go have that ice cream cone or whatever you want to do to celebrate. You need to do it because everybody around you will be excited for you as well. And as humans, we need to make sure that we have the happy along with the stress.
Absolutely.
So with that, one more question, a little on the stressful side. What keeps you up at night?
Always second guessing whether or not we're, kind of using the right strategy with a particular case. So is it that you're going to go the mitigation route and work out a plea agreement with the prosecutor? Is it that you are going to do a jury trial versus a bench trial? Is it that you've researched the right issues and you're arguing the right issues? So it's just, it's mainly work related things that keep me up. Thankfully, everything else in my life is not as stressful. And so it's typically something related to that.
Got it. Good. Well, Sami, thank you so much for being our guest here on Shrimp Tank today and in the Pacific Northwest. For our listeners who want to reach out and get in touch with you or learn a little bit more about your company, how can they get information?
Yeah, so my website, it's pretty easy. It's federalcriminallawyer.us. And then my email address, Azhari@azhariLLC.com. Those are the two easiest ways to learn about me and to contact me.
Great. Thank you. And listeners, make sure that you check out all the replays on our shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. And wherever you get your podcast, whether it be iHeart, Apple, Google, any of the other ones, we're there. Please follow us on our show's website or our show's social media, on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, Sami, I'm going to have to get up a couple hours early one of these weeks where you have your provisors meeting and go give a thankmonial to your group for you. Great show today. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey and all that. So thank you very much. Monica, welcome. It's been great having you. Your next show will be in March. We're looking forward to having you on then. Welcome to the big show, so to speak.
Yes.
Everybody, our next show will be Wednesday, February 8th. Our guest will be Christian Muntean from Vantage Consulting. We have Sami here from Chicago. Christian, I believe, will be our first guest from Alaska. So we are spanning the globe, so to speak. Christian will come and talk to us about his practice. My co-host for that show will be Linda Popke. In the meantime, be safe, be well, be prosperous. Go eat an ice cream cone. I like that idea. Because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.